So I'm really, really happy and excited to welcome Genna into Success.Studio, a series of interviews about successful entrepreneurs. And I'm really excited to hear the story. And I will tell you first in the beginning why I'm doing this at all. So I've been working in the corporate world for more than 8 years. And at a certain point when I decided to try myself as an entrepreneur, I started to search for the information, and it was so hard. I didn't find really a buzzing community where I can find people like Genna, find mentors, ask questions on how to be an entrepreneur, what are the first steps I need to take. So because I faced this problem, I decided to create such a community on my own. And the community is called European Business Community. And why European Business Community? Because I'm also really frustrated that everything is happening in the States. And you don't really see a lot of things happening online in Europe. I mean, there are a lot of offline events, but not so many things happening online. That's why I decided to set up this community. And I decided to search for people like Genna, grab them and like get as much information as possible out of them, to learn from them, to get inspired from them, and to go ahead with our dreams, especially women, because for women, I can see already for several years observing is quite difficult and hard for us to understand how to move forward and how to take risks. So I welcome Genna Elvin once again. I will briefly introduce her, and then we will move into a questionary mode when I will be asking Genna about how she was building her business and how she brought the business into a growth phase. So Genna is a serial entrepreneur, not a serial killer.
Not that I know
of. So she started building her first business when she was 17 years old. And now she's focusing on the business, tech business, which is called Tadaweb, tadaweb.com if you want to check it. And it's a business about managing small data. Yeah, if you can tell us a little bit more about that, that would be great, because like I'm not an owner, so for me it's difficult to understand what it is exactly about.
Yeah, sure. So I think before I kick off, I just want to say congratulations to you, because I totally agree, and I think there's a complete lack of sort of female role models out there, and so I think it's great to see someone actually taking some initiative and doing this kind of thing. So Tadaweb. So basically, Tada is now nearly 6 years old. We've sort of grown to about 50, and what our focus is on, we're a technology company. So our goal is to really enable sort of users to be able to create processes, automatic processes that basically do what they do manually. So basically just how you can interact with the internet. We want to create a sort of an intelligence, a technology that can replicate that, so it can be done a lot faster, and so you can access a lot more information. So we just try and provide users with a way to access better information.
Okay. Thanks for this information, Genna. And now I will come back actually to the roots of where this kind of entrepreneurial attitude comes from. So you said you started to be an entrepreneur, and you started your first business when you were 17 years old, and it was back in Australia, right? You said
in New Zealand.
In New Zealand.
Yeah.
How, I mean, looking at the girls now, at the 17 years girls now, it's so difficult to go out there and to actually start your own business. What do you think back then helped you actually to start your own business instead of going into a corporate world directly, as we usually do?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, I was quite lucky in a sense, because I was sort of from a place very far away. And I think anyone sort of growing up in a place very far away like New Zealand, they really want to travel. And so I guess as soon as I left high school, I wanted to travel and see the world. And I think sort of doing that for nearly 1 year alone, and then coming back to New Zealand, I had a much better understanding of how the world worked. So basically what I did when I got back from traveling, is I went to university, and I had the chance of meeting my co-founder at the time, who was from the Marshall Islands and super passionate about bringing solar energy to a group of small islands in the Marshalls. And it wasn't sort of in the beginning, I didn't think it was that entrepreneurial because my background sort of was international relations law, it was psychology. I was doing a double degree at the time. And I thought, why not? This is a great opportunity for me to learn more about international relations and really try and see how the world worked even more. Turned out that I ended up sort of being more of the business development side of things. So I worked with the US government and getting the grants and getting the funding. I worked to calibrate and bring the sort of solar panels. And I saw just how much of a change it could make when you come and disrupt something. And so by coming in and disrupting these islands that had no access to electricity, and we could provide them with refrigeration, with lighting. And I kind of got bitten by a little bug thinking, hey, this is pretty cool. We can actually create something and change something, even if it's a small part of the world. We can actually bring about change. And I think it was that idea of bringing about change that really sort of got me into the entrepreneurial kind of mindset.
This is a really great thing that you're talking about now, because what I'm noticing, searching for speakers, for example, like you, and looking at women entrepreneurs, that we are socially responsible and we are really doing business about something that really inspires us. So I think one of the advices based on what you're saying as well to younger ladies out there, or just women who are starting their businesses, is to find really a passion or about something that you want to change in that world and focus on that. That's really important. That's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm such an advocate of just really finding what makes you tick, and it's sort of you finding your why if you want, and then sort of I think it's not always easy to find, but once you find it, then it leverages and it makes things a lot easier to pursue.
Mm-hmm. But this is, let's say, let's call it the psychological part of that, yes? And then we go into technical part of the implementation, where you face all these difficulties of, okay, how do I start? How do I finance my project? How do I find partners? How I don't kill myself with all this workload? So when you were starting Tadaweb, and you moved already to Belgium, back then when you were starting that.
I moved over to Brussels to do my master's and then ended up creating a technology company.
So what helped you to move forward, not thinking, let's say, of these things like well ahead, as like women we usually do? We start to try to solve all the problems like well ahead in front of us, and then we get scared and we just don't go anywhere.
Yeah. I think sort of when we first started out, I think, we knew that the stat of failure was really high, but we just refused to believe it. We just sort of went in always having the mentality of it's going to work. And yeah, sure, we screwed up a lot. And in the beginning, it was a whole new experience because my background's sort of psychology, it's law, it's things like that. And despite it not being business, there's still a lot that I learned from those areas that are applied to what we were trying to do. So I think when we were first starting out, it was just really a matter of, okay, understanding sort of who we needed in our network, and who sort of taking advice from as many people as we could find, and amazing advisors, and then just taking it step by step. So what's the MVP?
Can you elaborate on that? So you said you started to search for people who had more knowledge than you did. How you were finding those people, how you were searching for them?
Yeah, sure. So I think, as I said, so our company is sort of based on, even before we incorporated, it's based on a lot of research of the technology by my co-founder. So already we started with something sort of tangible. And I think that's quite critical, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs now, they go into the Valley, or they even come to Europe and things like that, and they try and sell their idea. And that can be great, but I think it changes everything when you actually have something that they can test and they can try, even if there's nothing behind it, even if it's just an MVP that doesn't even function. But I think it just sells them into that world, and it is psychological as well to some extent. But you can bring them on this journey, and I think for us that was really critical in finding our early advisors and investors, was just giving them something to see and to understand.
So what did you have back then? Did you have a website? What was, you said MVPs, like minimum viable product, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. We literally had like a base. We created an application. It was a client application. It was really ugly, and it didn't really work that well, but it showed the idea, it showed the main concept. And so I think, they could see the main idea of what we're trying to create. And above all, they could see the potential of where it could go.
Okay, that's interesting. And you were developing that application by yourself, or you found people who
So
would do
myself
that
and
for
my
you?
co-founder. So my co-founder was doing all the development. He was coding and things like that, and I was kind of working on sort of the business relations and sort of just getting all of the non-technical things off the ground. So I think we're a really good combination. And I think having two people at least, and when you're starting up, I think starting with one is tough. Not only just because you have less hands, but also because you can get really lonely. And sort of you can't reflect your ideas off people. And so I think the two of us were a good team in the fact that one was technical and one was non-technical, and we both knew what we needed to get done.
Okay, I will dig a little bit into this. So when you decided to go into this startup, into building this startup, you were still working in the corporate world, right?
Yeah, I was working in government and sort of like the more political relations side of Brussels.
Okay, and so what was your financial caution? What was your financial security when you quit in the job for you didn't have anything?
Yeah, I think basically we decided to sort of leave New Zealand with 20 kilos of luggage, and sort of about 2 months, 2 months worth of, or maybe 3 months worth of savings. So I think it was quite risky. But I think that that's a big part of it. I mean, we literally thought we're young. We didn't, I didn't have any kids at that time. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have any responsibility. And I think you kind of, for me personally anyway, I kind of had a reflection and I thought, well, if I don't, there's an expression in French, it's qui ne tente rien n'a rien. It basically means if you don't try, you'll never know. And I think when I looked at the big scheme of where I was at that point, I decided that if I don't take the risk now, then I will never take it. And I think some people just get too caught up in risk. And I think sometimes it's granted. I think sometimes if you do have kids or you sort of have a lot of people that need you, and it can be tough to take risks. So you just need to try and do as much as you can to mitigate that risk. But I think what we did is we had great sort of early FFF investors, and we tried to mitigate as much risk at each step along the process. But when we did start, it was a big jump.
Okay, well, yeah, that's really interesting and really inspiring. Yeah, taking risks is actually the most important thing. And I always say, what is on the other side of fear? Nothing. So
I
if you
would
don't
rather,
take this,
exactly. I've got the expression. What is the expression? I would rather die of with no regrets than I'd rather die with remorse than regret.
exactly. But tell me more about investors, because when people start digging into entrepreneurship, into the startup world, they kind of, I think they believe, okay, it will be so difficult for me to get investment money because there are not so many investors out there, but the reality is not that way, right?
No. Well, I think it is tough. It is tough to get. I think I'm a big believer, and I don't think bad ideas should be funded. I think I think there's a whole bunch. I think I think if you are creating something that's not sort of innovative or creative, or it is hard to get funding. But I think it's a matter of, it's your challenge. The ball is in your court to create something that brings value, right? And so I think if you can, there's a whole bunch of ways you can sort of increase your chances of getting funding. So again, I touch on it, that the idea of having an MVP, having something, or even a proof of concept, even before you go MVP. So just having something that proves your idea, and just sort of having that before you go and raise money. But I think, try and just get a little bit of funding in the beginning, just bootstrap it as far as you can until you need to raise money. Because I think a lot of people try and raise money too naively and too early. So they've come and say, okay, I want 250K. Why? For an idea. I mean, that's really hard to do. And it's granted because they don't think they should be doing that yet. So I think, and even for things like your valuation, I mean, you don't want to be a brand new company coming in and trying to raise 250K at a really low valuation, because it will only it will help you in the future. So I think try and get just a little bit of self-funding in, try and get a little bit of friends, family and fools in early on, and just try and get that to last you as long as possible, and try and work so much. I think just hard work, there's no replacement for really hard work. Build it out as far as you can, and then look to raise money once you have something tangible.
It's a really valuable advice, and yeah, I'm actually really curious about listening to it myself, because I was attending a lot of investments events and just observing how people pitch. So in your case, when you went for the first time to pitch for an investor, what did you have? So you had the minimal viable product. You said you had an application,
Yeah.
and did you have like a presentation, 3 slides?
Yeah, I think so. There's 2 points that I want to mention here. I think in the beginning we were kind of like everyone. We didn't know how it worked. We were just trying to find out information, and we sent our slide decks to a lot of people, a lot of different investors, and we had a little bit of feedback, not much. But I think we always had the big dream, and I think we always knew exactly. Fast forward 6 years, our roadmap hasn't changed since 5 years ago. We've always had that vision of where we want to go. So I think you have to think big, you have to dream big. Like, it sounds really cliche, but it's so critical. If you can get an investor to buy in on your dream, on your vision, and they can actually believe that, then it makes things a lot easier. Secondly, I think one thing that I've learned and I'd like to share is that it's very rare that you'll get investment just through going to a VC without even knowing them, without any connections, and saying, hi, I want to pitch to you. Even some of my good friends now who are VCs, they say the amount of deal flow that comes in from that area and the amount of money that is invested, it's very low. So I think you have to build a network, and you have to build people that will introduce you to an investor with a positive affirmation, with sort of, hey, I know I've met this really cool startup, how about you take a look? And I think that is the best way to get before an investor, to get into a pitch with them.
Okay, so I will just summarize a little bit, because you said really two really great ideas. So the first one is that you really need to think big and communicate your idea big as well. And I cannot agree more with that, because this is something that should drive you and something that should drive your investor when you try to sell your idea. And I was actually really surprised, not so recently, because I was pitching my project as well, and I said that I really want to build the largest business community in Europe, where people can come together, they can buzz, they can ask questions to each other, learn from the experience, learn from people like you. And there were people who were giving feedback on pitch. So it wasn't pitch to investors, it was rather an exercise. And one of the guys said, oh, really? You want to build a huge, like the largest community? I hardly believe that. No, I don't buy that. I don't believe in that. And, I wasn't even disappointed, because,
take it as a challenge.
I take it as a challenge. I mean, of course, I don't believe sometimes in it myself, but this is what makes me wake up in the morning and work for it, because the big dream, and I'm doing it not only for myself, but for people around me who also want to become entrepreneurs. So it's really important.
Critical. Yeah, I think just a little bit side note on that point as well. I think, you can dream big, but what you also need to provide is the realistic steps on how you will achieve that. And when you bring your roadmap with, okay, I want to do this, and this is how we'll get to the big dream. Mm-hmm. That's critical as well. It's that I want to build this, but this is how. And when you have the how as well, that's when you can potentially find someone that will be like, wow, I know how you're going to get to this amazing place.
Yeah, that's definitely like a great point, because you need to have a big dream, but you also need to know how to get there. Yeah, exactly. That's really important. And the second important point that you have mentioned is networking. Like everywhere I go and everywhere I talk with people who are really experienced and who are very successful, they always say that networking was something that really helped them to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. And so tell me that you said that you started to send investors your pitch. How were you finding those investors back then?
Yeah, I think when you just basically do a cold call or cold connect with these guys, I think, it depends really on the business. I think for us, it was really hard to explain our technology and our business in a one pager. It was really hard. It was really hard because it was really complex and it was very different. Mm-hmm. And I think some people who are doing, for example, like, I don't know, something like delivering fresh vegetables so you can cook an amazing meal at night. I think that's kind of maybe potentially, I love the idea, but it's potentially a lot more straightforward to present in a one pager. You get it straight away, So I guess it depends completely on the business that you're trying to build. But I think for us personally, as a company, it was definitely, we'd seen something, didn't really get it, hard to explain because they were confused and they were getting so much information in all the time. They really had limited resources. And so basically what we ended up doing is we just tried to surround ourselves by amazing people who are really well connected in that world, who we got to explain to them, who then could pass that message on to the big investors. And I think that was critical for us.
And how you were finding those people? Were you attending events, conferences?
Yeah. We in the very beginning, for example, we went to the Pioneers Festival. We were one of the top 50 startups, and we submitted to a lot of sort of different startup competitions and things like that, tech startup competitions. We went all over Europe and we were really lucky because we managed to sort of win presentation awards. And I think all of those sort of beginning sort of awards coming in and presentation awards and, just getting ourselves out there. It sort of, TitlewIP. Yeah, I think I've heard of TitlewIP. Actually, you should talk to this person, and that just slowly started.
Uh-huh. So you were presenting yourself at trade shows and where
less so trade shows, but more sort of like technology conferences.
Conferences.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when there's always a startup pitching competition, for example.
But when you were getting there to technology conferences and presenting yourself, did you already have traction on the markets? Because we
were still in R&D. So I think there's two routes you can go. I think as a technology company, you either go down the road where you want to start monetizing straight away and getting customers on straight away, or you can go down the road where you want to create some really amazing IP, and in order to do that, you have to develop. So I think for us, we were super lucky that our initial angel investors really believed in the technology, and that enabled us to go about sort of 1.5, 2 years without even putting anything out on the market, which is very rare as well, because we just focused so much on developing out our technology.
Okay, and how did you start to generate your first clients? So we got to the phase, how did you make your business grow?
Sure. I think for us, it was a little bit opportunistic in the beginning here in Luxembourg. And so we kind of looked at the low-hanging fruit. We made a lot of mistakes on the process, of course. But in Luxembourg, for example, there's a lot of banks, there's a lot of hedge funds, there's a lot of finance instruments. So I think our first focus was just testing out our platform and making sure that it was stable, that there were no bugs, understanding how users interacted with it. I think testing out for that product market fit is so critical. You have to understand, we can use our technology and we love it and we're like, oh my God, that's awesome. And then you give it to someone and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what does this even mean, And so I think that was a critical sort of first step in truly understanding who our market was. So we focused a lot sort of with Deloitte and with different customers on just understanding how they used our technology and sort of using that data to iterate, to pivot. If the lean startup model, essentially, I'm sure you're familiar with it, but the idea of sort of pivoting and sort of really quick cycles of development, I think that for us was critical. And then sort of once we had that sort of first feedback, then we sort of just tested and tried a few different markets to find the right fit until the fit was really tight.
So how were you really reaching to your clients when you said when you were pivoting? And pivoting also means that you're reaching out to your clients or to your potential clients, and you start to have problematic interviews, on like using your product. How you were finding those people?
Yeah, I think again goes to sort of down to location. So in Luxembourg, it's generally quite easy to get your foot in the door of quite a few organizations. Again, because it was by the time we decided to hit the market, we sort of launched at Pioneers Festival, so at a massive technology conference. So I think getting your name out there first, getting them sort of to be a little bit aware of who you are, going in with the validity of, hey, look, we just won this competition, we had this, we partnered with this person, and sort of having all of those sort of proof points that you can go on and say, actually, yeah, we are a startup, but actually we're doing a pretty good job with it, and I think having the network, sort of having a few people around us who could make one introduction, for example, to a big four. And then it's a matter of us getting our foot in the door and then actually going in and sort of explaining. But it's all that sort of finding the right people who can just give you one introduction. Once you're in, you need something to prove yourself. And it's just that sort of game of proving yourself.
Yeah, I think if you summarize it in one word, it's called building credibility.
Exactly.
Building credibility.
Exactly.
So it's actually a very important thing in building your business, because one of the biggest mistakes people do when they build their businesses, about dreaming their businesses, they think, okay, that they develop a product and they will get to the market and everyone will just love the product and will buy it, or service, for example. But when you get to the market, no one knows you. No one knows if they can trust you or not. So it's really important to build credibility. So
Exactly.
I cannot agree more with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Especially for startups, because, you know, with the chance of failure is so high. And so you have to prove that you're not going to fail, and that you're stable, and you're a mature company.
okay, but you really need to search a lot of opportunities where you can participate in competitions that you mentioned, and in those technology conferences, because I can imagine, I mean, you write all those people who they want to have as presenters, people with successful businesses. So when you have your startup, which doesn't even have traction in the market, what do you do to get there actually?
Yeah, I think again for us, and this is maybe quite specific for technology companies, right? But I think we could really sell them on our technology, so on what we were trying to build. So we were literally, and we still continue right now, to build something that hasn't been built before. You know, it's really, really, I hate the word disruptive because I think it's overused, but I think it's really changing the face of the market that we're in. So I think creating that, and maybe even curiosity, and sort of intriguing them, and sort of saying, wow, we've got this massive technology conference. Maybe there's lots of B2B SaaS or things like that, but there's, you know, you guys are focusing on something that's new. And I think really sort of finding the sweet spot of, you know, you look at, you sort of analyze the conference, you research, you try and find out what could be really appealing to them. I think you need to spend so much time researching. And we'd even give, for example, in the demos before we got into the competition, we'd take sort of all of the speakers and do some really cool analysis on them. So when we were applying for the process, they'd be like, oh, wow, you've actually done your research, and that's pretty cool what you're doing. And it was straight away pertinent to them, you know?
So it's basically like having an interview with a potential employer. Yeah.
Exactly.
You just do your research.
Yeah, exactly.
And you did it all on your own. I mean, with your partner.
Yeah, I think in the beginning we had one developer. So we had like myself, my co-founder, and we hired one developer from the first day.
Yeah, but I mean, reaching out to those conferences. So you were writing the copy. I mean, the emails all on your own.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly. That was a big part of my first year. Was just sort of trying to win as many competitions as possible, and trying to get us out there and trying to connect.
That's great. You know, now I've got this question in my head. I mean, was all this happening organically in your head that, okay, to grow my company, I need to participate more in like technological conferences, or there was like really a very good plan behind that?
I would like to say yes, everything was very well planned, you know, like we had everything, but it's not true at all. I mean, we literally just kind of thought, you know, when we started, we never thought we'd be presenting in Austria before 10,000 people. You know, we never thought we'd be, you know, one of the best startups in Luxembourg competition. You know, it was kind of just out of, you know, we got a newspaper article, and then these people contacted us, and it was really just luck to an extent, sort of forced luck. Of just thinking, oh, actually this could be a good idea, should we just go for this? And then we won this one, and you know, it's sort of like an incremental process of learning. And then understanding what works and what doesn't. So yeah, it wasn't well planned, but I would really advise sort of young and up and coming startups to try and test their luck at these kind of things, because it's a perfect platform for getting known, you know.
Definitely. Really great advice. Yeah, I will just jot everything down on the paper to follow the same process.
No idea. It kind of worked for us, so hopefully it would work for someone else as well.
So you have told me as well that you were featured in Forbes as a top 100 female founders. How did you get there? I mean, how is it? It's so difficult to be noticed by Forbes and to reach out to them and actually to have them reply to you.
Yeah, so actually it was because it was even a surprise to me actually. So I didn't even really know, but I think how it initially happened was that I was featured in a Berlin magazine, so the Hundert, and that was sort of like a magazine that focuses on you know, entrepreneurship. But they did one series on female entrepreneurs female founders of Europe, and sort of. I don't think I was actually, you know, I think I was kind of lucky as well, because I think, you know, I imagine that they sort of wanted to sort of get it from many different countries. And I think sort of in Luxembourg, there's sort of Luxembourg, Belgium, there's not many sort of successful female founders. So I think I was really lucky in that respect, because I was coming from quite a small pond, if you want. But I think just I really try and work a lot in the area of sort of working to to get females known. You know, I've created scholarships in sort of high schools to get kids into, you know, females into STEM. You know, I work with the government a lot. I lecture at university, and I try and just do a whole bunch of different areas. And I think it was just kind of that dialogue, maybe from government, from, you know, from starting at different events, and slowly get known in Berlin. And then once we got known in Berlin at this, you know, this amazing sort of reputable magazine, then Forbes kind of got a hold of that. So I think it's just, again, it goes back to sort of working across multiple different areas, building up your reputation, getting lucky as well, but getting featured by one sort of reputable sort of magazine, and then sort of then by a bigger brother of that reputable magazine. And I think it's just a progressive, like a snowball, essentially.
Yeah, sounds actually really complicated. So whatever articles that were published about you and about TEDAVAP, they just came out organically. Yeah, that's what you're saying. You were not paying any PR or anything like that.
No, we've never paid PR.
Oh, that's really great. Okay, we're gonna work on reputation a lot and get some visibility.
And just try and, like, I think, you know, touch multiple different spots, you know, like, you know, if you try and work and go, I mean, I was on the jury member last week for the Lux Innovation Fit for Start program, and, you know, and it was me on the other side deciding who got funding, and it was, you know, I was working for there, and like I say, just working with schools and universities and events. And I think the more you can kind of just get into multiple different areas and get yourself known and build your reputation, I think the stronger you become.
Okay, and when you get into those small areas, you mean that there are some reporters who get into there, they take the pictures and they start writing articles, and this is how you get noticed.
Yeah. For example, I was fortunate 2 weeks ago to be on a panel with the Prime Minister. And I think that's in Luxembourg, and I think that's great because everyone, you know, that there's going to be sort of.
Okay, my dog that's activated. There is a cat in the garden. Sorry about this. Cookie. Okay. I will give him a treat so he would calm down. Just a moment.
This is all about creating as well. It's about sort of finding a solution when there's a problem. So I think it's a great example.
Okay, I don't have babies yet, but dog is something that can prevent you from doing an interview as well. Okay, tell me about your biggest fuck up.
There's probably too many for words. I think we've made a lot of fuck ups. I think, you know, I think maybe in the beginning, not having a solid enough product market fit, you know, I think, and really sort of listening to the wrong people and sort of pursuing up. Yeah, I think that was it. I think so. In the beginning, you know, we had so many ideas. We said, okay, we can target, you know, sports. We can target so many different. Markets. And so what we did was we built a solution that could target all of those different markets. So a solution that could target B2B, but it could also target, you know, B2C and all of those kind of things. And I think that approach was a massive fuck up, because I think it was like shooting a machine gun into a bunch of pigeons, essentially. You know, we didn't have enough focus, we didn't have enough target. And I think now my team is just going crazy. I think not having enough focus on our initial target market and not having enough product market fit was a big fuck up that we learned a lot from. And we learned that we really had to focus on sort of the sweet spot, the market that had sort of the biggest pain point that we could really drill down and focus on.
But would you say anyways that it's a natural way to start from? Because I mean, in the marketing, because I'm a marketing expert, and this is the first thing when you start a business, they tell you cannot focus on everyone. You really need to choose your niche target audience. But I think the problem is that when you start building your business, you still don't understand what your target audience is. So you kind of start broad, and then you start to understand through the first traction with your potential clients what is the ideal customer for your business.
Yeah, I think that's completely true, but it's a matter of execution. So I think what we should have done, instead of it goes back to what you said earlier, is we shouldn't have built out a whole solution. We should have just interviewed, we should have surveyed, we should have, you know, created little mini MVPs, you know. But basically what we did was we created the solution. We spent maybe even a year or two developing it, you know, and without even testing it. And that was stupid. And I agree, we learned a lot from that. And maybe that was the only, that for us, maybe I'm sure that helped us a lot now. But I think we could have saved a lot of time if we'd just sort of been a bit more clever about it instead of building something massive for the mass audience.
But if, let's say, so if we would go 5 years back now, when you were just starting, and you still didn't have the knowledge about what your customer is, what would you do differently?
I would focus a lot more on research. So I would basically, I would do a lot more testing before building. So I would try and I'd see the market, and I would do, like, for example, like the Dropbox guys, they did it great when they first started. So what did the Dropbox do? Before they even wrote one line of code, what they did was they created a video of file sharing, and as if Dropbox already existed, just to get a feeling for who could have used it. And they discovered their market through that. So potentially one thing that, when I lecture my students at university, I say, guys, if you're not really sure of what market you do, how about you just create a AdWords campaign or a Facebook campaign and then just see who the clicks are, run different demographics. Okay, focus on, 50-year-old males in Germany, or focus on, teenagers in New York or something like that, and just see where the most traffic is coming from. Yeah, who converts. And so I think even just small steps like that, that's not all relevant for every single company or service, but I think, just focus on really fine tuning and testing the market before you build.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Yeah, because I'm actually struggling with it myself, trying to understand what is the target audience, and yeah, I will definitely take it on board. And we actually have a comment from Celine. She says, thanks for sharing this inspiring story. That I definitely agree. That's an inspiring story about making your dream a reality. There is always a conception and preparation phase before you actually implement your idea. Wondering at what point Genna felt that her idea was ready to implement, and what was the first concrete step she took, and any failures and learning that she experienced at the beginning to share.
Yeah, sure. So I think there's sort of 2 points. I think sort of the technology at its base was created by my co-founder 15 years ago based on a problem. So he couldn't access information the way he wanted to. That was the first step. The second step of deciding when we wanted to incorporate was quite funny, because we had this sort of technology. It was just a side project, we didn't really think much of it. And they were like, hey, well, let's just show our friends. And they're like, wow, that's really cool, but yeah, it's like your friends. It's like if you tell your mum, she'll be like, oh my God, I'm going to pay $1 million for it, which is, And then we started showing sort of like work colleagues and sort of people in finance, and they thought, actually, that's really, really cool. And then what happened was that we showed our first customer. Well, we didn't think it was a customer, and they said, I want to buy that now. And we said, we don't even have a company. We don't even have anything, So we literally incorporated our company just so we could send an invoice. And so that was like a tipping point for us. And then we kind of were like, oh, holy crap, now we need to actually build this out now, properly. But I think sort of that was a big tipping point. So I think that the very first idea for Celine, it was really, okay, it started on a problem, of not having, proper access to information. That problem sort of created the base solution. And then after that, we sort of found out that we could actually incorporate this, and we could actually just take that leap. And so we just did it. So I think 2 points there.
Perfect. Celine, I hope Genna have answered your question. If not, you can elaborate the question a little bit more if you want. Okay, let me think about my next question. So we still have 20 minutes to go. So let's say that your business have disappeared. I hope it will never happen, but it's just an exercise. And you are 5 years back to where you were. So what you would do differently apart from audience research that you said, what would be the first 3 steps that you would take to build the company from scratch?
Okay, so if it disappeared right now and I could start again, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's a tough one, because I'm definitely one of these people that think, even despite all the mistakes, despite all the fuck ups, I think, there's one concept that, I talk about a lot with people, and it's my idea of the kitchen floor moment. So the kitchen floor moment for me is, it's a time when like everything's just turned to shit, right? Everything's just like really like not going well. And the only thing you can basically do, and it's actually actually physically happened, is you just have to sit on the kitchen floor and you just stare at the roof and you think, oh my God, how am I going to find a solution to this? Right. And I think in the midst of those moments, you kind of just think, it's the end. Like there's no solution. Like this is, it's not going to work. And then you somehow grit through it. You find a solution miraculously and you move on. And then within a few months, you go back and you're like, holy crap, I'm so glad that's happened. I'm so glad that investor pulled out, or I'm so glad that product failed, or I'm so glad, and so I think it's a tough question, because I think, despite all of the mistakes, I think, I wouldn't change many of them. But I think, tough question. So if I was going to start everything again,
it's like, so you would save time this time. So
yeah.
like what you do better? What you would do differently?
Yeah, sure. I think I would definitely go for, I think our business model is sort of like focus more on, finding the sweet spot. So I think I would never ever again hire a sales team to sell solutions of between 10 and 20K, because I think that's a really bad idea for any business. If you have to hire someone that has to go in and dedicate a lot of time for a 10K or a 20K sale, economically, it's not sound. It's not a great idea. So if I was to start it again, I would really think carefully about my sales strategy, and I would really think carefully about sort of, what is the size, what is the, the deal size that I'm creating here? How much am I paying sales to do that? And is this actually sound? Is this going to enable my company to scale? Because
yeah. So what you're saying, you actually need to pay more to your salespeople to perform better, or I misunderstood?
No, I'm saying basically if you hire like salespeople that are going to invest a lot of their time and resources into selling, then you need to make sure that the amount that they're selling it for is justified. So it's like, for example, you don't want to pay a salesperson an annual salary and they're not even generating their salary,
Yeah,
happens, and this really does happen, and we've been there and done that. I think so. You really need to think carefully about when you're structuring your sales team, because I think if you need to make sure that their return on investment, if you want, their sort of the value that they're creating far exceeds your investment into them. So the amount you're paying them essentially. And that's where a lot of sort of startups can get stuck, because they think, oh no, it's okay, we're making 10, 20K a month or something like this. Yeah, but how much are you paying your sales team? Oh, we're paying them 50K, and so like, come on, open your eyes. So I think you really need to be careful of, vanity metrics, and, making sure that the metrics that you're measuring actually are sort of, an accurate depiction of the current state of the business,
Yeah, it's actually really important indeed. And I think many people don't even think in these terms, that when you hire a salesperson, he actually needs to earn more than you invest into that person.
Exactly. Or even in the future, or has the potential to earn more, maybe not in the first few months or whatever, but I think, they need to have the potential to increase the value.
Mm-hmm. I have the kind of an organizational type of question, because when you build your own company and you have your family and children as well, you have to manage your time properly. Do you have actually a feeling that you don't have enough of hours in a day, and how do you tackle this?
Absolutely. And if anyone has the magic pill, I think I'll be the first one to take it. I think, I think I had my son not too long after starting my company. And so I was sort of starting two babies at the same time, which was crazy. And and it was just, it was crazy. But I think it teaches you to be really well organized and structured. And I think, you have to understand what you're trying to achieve. And I think you have to build an incredible team around you that can support you. And you have to be able to delegate early and trust people. I think you can't go in and be a one-man show or a one-woman show and expect, you have to do everything. You just can't, in the beginning, sure, it's really tough and you have to do everything yourself. Mm-hmm. But I think there's two things there. So being able to delegate, key, to people that you trust and people that work super well, and two, being super organized. And I think, I'm a very early waker. Okay. And I think, that sort of, and I need my gym and I need things like this, because I know that will give me mental clarity to do my day. And I have a really structured approach to what I do. And I think without that sort of mentality of working super hard and being structured and delegating, I don't think you'll get that far, or as we need to be.
So can you outline briefly your day? So it starts from gym Then you do planning.
Yes,
How does it work?
I wake up super early. I'm generally sort of up, too early, sort of it's still dark. um,
Five, 6.
Yeah, around then.
Mm-hmm.
And then so basically, sort of, it depends on the day. I sort of do a few different strategies, but I always have to see my son in the morning. So that's critical for me. And I love cooking. So I always make sure he has a cooked breakfast, and, you know, and just say goodbye. And I have an amazing husband, who I'm very fortunate, and he drops him at school. So I just go straight to work, straight to the gym, finish at the gym, and then I'm in the office, sort of just on emails, sorting out all of the things that need to happen. And then it's basically, it really depends on day to day. You know, I spend a lot of time sitting down with my team, and just sort of having sort of meetings and finding out, okay, what are the priorities? How are you feeling? Is everyone happy? What's our recruitment strategy? You know, and just really focusing on the people. You know, I think that's a really critical part of my day. It's just who's happy, who's not happy, why, you know, and how we're building this culture and continue to maintain this culture. And then I go home and I pick up my son, sort of around 6:30, and then I cook every night. It's sort of my place where I can just unwind and relax. And then I sleep super early. So I think
What time do you go to bed?
9:30 is quite late for me. 9:30, 10 o'clock. Yeah, I'm a bit
Wow,
of a
yeah,
nana.
that's amazing. But I think, yeah, I've heard from a lot of women, particularly those who have children, that they wake up very early and they usually go to bed, yeah, quite early as well. And how do you ensure that you don't deviate from your mission and you don't get lost in routine?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, you know, it's super easy to get sidetracked, you know, and it's a matter of sort of when you, the lean idea of pivoting, right? So it's like, when do you need to pivot and when are you getting distracted? And I think it all comes down to testing again, you know, like you can sort of be sort of going in this direction and then something comes along and you kind of get distracted off. And I think it's the way we have prevented ourselves from getting too distracted and then deciding between getting too distracted and then deciding that actually it's a good idea to deviate was through metrics. So, okay, is this change sort of increasing the value of what I'm doing, or is it sort of decreasing the value, or is it not changing the value? If, you know, we've moved and we've decided to take a course change, be it market wise or pricing change or something like that, and we see that it's actually generating more value and scalable value, because you might have a sort of short term increase and we think it's all great, but you know, having key metrics to measure the sort of that change is critical. And I think when you have that, you know whether you're getting distracted or whether you know whether you're making an altered strategic course change.
Okay, that's clear. That's interesting. And are there any techniques that you use to keep your energy level up apart from the gym? Because do you go to gym every day?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's great. That's amazing.
A little bit addictive. Energy up. I think, you know, I think surrounding yourself by positive people. You know, I think even when, like right now I flew in from London ridiculously early this morning and I'm pretty tired, but I just look around sort of and I see this amazing team around me who are full of energy. And I think, you know, just really sharing the energy of the team and sort of keeping positive and keeping upbeat. I think that kind of gives me a lot of energy, is just seeing what we're building here. And, you know, a good can of Red Bull every now and then never goes astray.
Okay, there is a bad trick behind here. Okay.
And we've got an excellent coffee machine.
When you have down moments when it feels like things are not going right and they're not going well, how do you motivate yourself to keep on going, keep on moving forward?
Yeah, I think me personally, I mean, and my co-founder as well, we're hugely driven about sort of where we're going in life is in general. You know, like I have a really clear idea of where I want to go. I know I want to open my restaurant. I know I want to potentially get into angel investing. I know I want to work with schools, you know, and I think, and sometimes when you kind of like, oh, this is so tiring and this is, you know, it's not going the way I want it to right now, or I've just got too many emails or something like that. I try as much as I can just to stop and be like that. Yes, don't forget your end goal. You know, don't forget where you want to go, Jenna. Don't forget where you know, you have your eyes set on the target. And I think sometimes it's so important just to take yourself back and think about, why am I actually doing all of this? And I think when you can think of the why, then it sort of can get you through a lot of tough situations.
Perfect. I've just jotted it down on the paper.
There's a great book called Finding Your Why. I mean, I'm a massive reader, and I think that's a good idea, even for marketing and for everything, but also for personal development. It's really understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And I think once you have that why, and I'm not there yet. I don't mean to sound I do, but it's really important.
Yeah, I've heard actually about this book and about this concept, and asking yourself quite often when you do something, why you do that and where it will bring you, is actually really important on your way and for your motivation. And you actually answered my next question. I wanted to ask you, what are your favorite books?
Oh, too many to list. No, but I think I'm an Audible addict because I do go to the gym a lot, and I drive a lot as well, and so I can get through about sometimes 2 to 3 books a week. And I think that's definitely helped as well. Maybe I should have mentioned it earlier, but just really constantly seeking knowledge and constantly learning and constantly reading. Books. I think for starting out a company, I think Lean Startup is great. I think just that idea of pivoting and learning and the circles of development. I think I love books like, I read a great one recently called Super Intelligence, and it's sort of just the future of, I think it goes a little bit too far in the end, but I think the idea of where our future is going and how do you fit as a person within that? How does a company fit within the roadmap of where technology is potentially going? Lean In, another cliche book, but I think for women, I think Sheryl Sandberg is a great lady and was a great author in that book. And books like Elon Musk are really inspiring for me, because I think he's one of these people that, I mean, back sort of 20, 30, 50 years ago, people thought the future right now would be flying cars and living on Mars, right? Or living on the moon, at least, things. And then we arrive here and it's kind of like, where is all of this dream? We're using Facebook and amazing things like this, but the sort of the true technology development is not quite there. So he's one of these people that want to bring technology back to what everyone dreamed it to be. And so I'm really inspired by people like that who just bring dreams to reality.
Yeah, and he's doing absolutely crazy things, and who knows, maybe in the next decade we can already fly to Mars.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite quotes that support you in like low times?
Let me have a think. I think there is, you can see it on our, I can show you office, is on our wall over there. There's this idea of it's in French, but it's qui ne tente rien n'a rien. So it's really the idea of, if you don't try something, you'll never know, like, unless you try. And I think that's always sort of my mentality. It's what I teach my son when it comes to food and things like that. So you don't have to like it, but you have to try it, and I think I use that sort of mentality in a lot of different things, and it's sort of, and for everything I embrace, and I come to, I'm kind of like, well, okay, at least I can say that I tried it and it didn't work, or I tried it and I never thought it would work, but it worked, and sort of that idea of just mind over matter. It's just like, if you think you can do something, then you can do it to an extent. So
it's like Tony Robbins says, burn the boats.
Yeah, exactly. Just no going back.
There is no way back, but people get scared when you say there is no way back. I mean, of course there is a way back. What he means by that you will never be the same person again.
Yeah.
Well,
you'll be a very good swimmer.
Exactly. Okay, Genna, I think we can already conclude the interview. Yeah, it's almost 1 hour that we did it, and it really flied because it was really inspiring and really interesting. I'm glad we had this interview. I learned personally a lot, and I hope the people who are listening to us also learned a lot. Do you have any last words you want to share?
Yes, I think I've actually just had an idea now. I think because when I have time, I try and blog about my experiences, and about sort of the idea of neuro leadership, so applying psychology and neuroscience to building teams and things like that. So if anyone sort of wants to check out my blog, it's gennaelvin.com. How
do you spell it again?
Genna Elvin, so my name, and .com.
Okay.
.com. And there, and if anyone wants to contact me or have any questions or anything like that, don't hesitate to. But I think it is about taking risk. Everything is about taking risk and sort of just trying and sort of taking risk within reason. So if you do decide to make a jump, then make sure you measure it and make sure you calculate and things like that. So take quantified and risk, and don't forget that we're women, but we're still very strong and powerful, and we can use it to our advantage as well.
That's great, Genna. Thank you so much. I will just briefly summarize everything that you said, or at least things that I remembered.
Sure.
That to really bring your business to a growth, Genna recommends to build your authority, to build your reputation, to reach out to the conferences, present your product and your company or your services at the conferences, then building a strong network of people who believe into you and who bring you to right investors or to right people. So networking is really important. Don't forget to have a big dream. So when you're building your business, it's important to have a bigger mission. You might do routine things on a daily basis where you can lose yourself, but you should always keep a focus on a mission that excites you and that excites people around you. Surround yourself with positive people. To never give up, to have really good surroundings around yourself, to keep your energy levels up. Go to the gym, maybe not every day like Genna, but
do something
often.
that you love. Do something that you love, you know, get on the side.
Yeah. Ask yourself question why I'm doing that. Try to learn all the time. So Genna reads a lot with Audible. By the way, I do as well a lot. It's really handy, especially when you're a mom and you're very busy. Read, learn, constantly update your knowledge. The favorite books of Genna, which she recommends, is Lean Startup, Super Intelligence, Lean In, and all the books of Elon Musk. She's really inspiring. And the favorite phrase, the favorite quote of Genna: if you don't try, you will never know. So think about it, ponder on this quote, and go forward and achieve your dream, guys. And I hope it was really, really useful. And go to the blog of Genna also to read more information about her and the smart stuff that she's sharing, because she's reading really a lot. I will check it out myself. So guys, the video will be available on Facebook page of European Business Community group. Celine, thank you very much as well for being with us. Celine is saying that super useful. Thank you, Genna. And if you have questions to Genna, yeah, you can contact her. I will also send the video to people who registered and all the links to the information about Genna and TEDweb. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right. Thank you for watching. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you for the great initiative.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.